Welcome to this explainer. If you've ever felt like investing is just some secret foreign language only spoken by Wall Street pros, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking all that intimidating financial jargon and we're translating it into simple, actionable math. We are completely demystifying the stock market for you by breaking down the ultimate beginner's blueprint to investing. All right, let's dive right in. Here's our exact 5-step blueprint for today. First, why you must invest now. Second, what to invest in. Third, are you ready to invest? Fourth, buying your first share. And finally, the long-term winning strategy.
Starting things off with Section 1, why you must invest now. Okay, we really have to address a hard truth about just leaving your extra cash sitting in a savings account or, stuffed under a mattress. It doesn't just sit there safely. It actually loses value every single day. To understand why, just ask yourself, why is your $5 Frappuccino suddenly costing almost $9? I mean, you've definitely noticed this at your local coffee shop, right? That price jump isn't just a mistake or some crazy corporate greed. It's actually a perfect, everyday example of a really powerful, invisible economic force.
And that force is inflation. Simply put, it's the process where prices go up over time, which causes your money's buying power to shrink. That means $1,000 today absolutely will not buy you $1,000 worth of stuff in a few years. Because inflation is actively eating away at your cash, growing your money isn't just some magic trick for the super wealthy, it's a mathematical necessity just to survive. So, look at this. This brilliantly illustrates the absolute best solution to inflation: compound interest. Notice how the timeline completely shrinks down. If you invest $1,000 a month with an average 10% return, reaching your first $100,000 takes roughly 6 years. But watch what happens next. The money actually starts making its own money. That second 100 grand takes less than 4 years. The third takes less than 3, and the fourth takes less than 2 years. It's literally like a snowball rolling down a hill, just gathering speed and mass the further it goes.
Moving right along to Section 2, what to invest in.
Deciding exactly where to put your money without feeling like you're at a casino is a huge psychological hurdle. A lot of beginners make the mistake of chasing hot individual stocks. They hear about a huge win at a dinner party and immediately want in. But individual stocks carry incredibly high risk. Just think about historical darlings like Kodak, which plummeted from $90 down to a single buck, or BlackBerry, crashing from $145 to $10. Chasing past success can entirely wipe you out. Instead, the much better alternative is index funds. You're buying a whole basket of stocks, which offers far lower risk, way less stress, and much more consistent, steady growth.
And hey, you don't just have to take my word for it. Listen to Jack Bogle, the legendary founder of Vanguard. He famously said, "Don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the entire haystack." Even Warren Buffett says index funds are the absolute smartest move for most regular people. And honestly, if it's good enough for one of the greatest investors in human history, it's definitely a strategy we should be paying serious attention to.
So let's get a clear definition here. An index fund, or an ETF, which stands for Exchange Traded Fund, is basically just a giant collection of money pooled from investors like you and me. And that pool is used to buy a little tiny bit of each company on a specific list. For example, an S&P 500 ETF buys a slice of the top 500 companies in the United States. By owning a tiny piece of hundreds of companies at once, if one company struggles, well, it barely even affects you because the other 499 are there carrying the weight.
It's really amazing to see how incredible the diversification is inside a real S&P 500 ETF, like SPLG for instance. When you buy just one single share, your money is automatically split up for you. Roughly 7% goes to Apple, 6% to Microsoft, 6% to Nvidia, and the remaining 81% is spread across 497 other major companies, like Visa or Home Depot. You get all the heavy hitters in one extremely simple package.
So, out of the thousands of ETFs out there, how do you actually pick the right one? Well, here are your 3 golden rules. First, ensure it tracks a major, proven index like the S&P 500. Second, make sure the actual share price fits comfortably within your personal budget. And third, and guys, this one is absolutely critical, check the expense ratio. That's just a fancy term for the management fee. You want to look for an expense ratio well below 0.5%. High fees will silently eat away at your compounding returns over the years, so you really want to keep those costs as close to zero as humanly possible.
Let's move on to Section 3. Are you ready to invest?
Okay, before you rush out to buy that ETF, we need to make sure your financial foundation is rock solid. Because trying to build wealth on a crumbling foundation, total disaster.
Just consider the drastic difference between these two numbers. The stock market historically averages around a 10% annual gain. Great, right? But credit card debt, that often carries a punishing 25% interest rate. If you're trying to invest while holding on to high-interest credit card debt, you are basically trying to fill up a gas tank that has a massive hole in the bottom. Mathematically, you are moving backwards every single month.
That brings us to our strict two-step readiness checklist. Step 1, pay off your high-interest debt. We're talking anything over 7 to 12%. Because think about it, paying off a 25% interest credit card is effectively a guaranteed 25% return on your money. You are literally not going to find a guaranteed return like that in any stock market. And step 2, build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. If your car suddenly breaks down or you unfortunately lose your job, you need cash on hand so you aren't forced to sell your stocks at a loss just to keep the lights on.
And that leads us perfectly into this ultimate rule of thumb. Only invest money you do not need for the next several years. If you're saving for a house down payment that you're going to need in 12 months, keep it completely out of the stock market. In the short term, the market is a wild, volatile roller coaster. No one, literally no one, can predict what it'll do tomorrow. You only want to invest money that can just sit there totally undisturbed for the long haul.
Which brings us to Section 4, buying your first share.
So, let's strip away all those intimidating, clunky interfaces of modern brokerages and show you just how incredibly simple this really is. First up, you need an account. Where does your stock actually live? Well, you essentially have two main buckets. On the left, you've got a Roth IRA. This offers massive tax benefits, meaning your money grows completely tax-free, but the catch is you generally cannot pull that money out penalty-free before age 59 and a half. On the right, you have a taxable brokerage account, or a TBA. This gives you absolute flexibility to deposit and withdraw anytime you want, but you will have to pay taxes on your gains. Now, for long-term wealth, the Roth IRA is incredibly powerful, but you really need to choose the one that fits your exact personal goals.
Okay, so once your account is open at a place like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab, here are the exact 5 clicks needed to buy your stock. Ready? Open your account, link your bank, and transfer your funds over. Search for your chosen ETF ticker. Let's just use SCHD for this example. Set your order type to a market order, just to keep things super simple, and buy it whatever the current price is. And finally, click buy. That is literally it. In about 5 steps, you have officially become an investor.
And finally, Section 5, the long-term winning strategy.
I would honestly argue this is the absolute most critical part of this entire explainer. Actually, keeping the wealth you build requires a very, very specific psychological mindset. The core mantra here is simple: buy, hold, and forget. The biggest threat to your wealth isn't the economy. It isn't interest rates. It's you. Specifically, it's panic selling the second your screen turns red. It is totally human nature to want to sell and stop the bleeding when your portfolio drops, but panic selling is precisely how most people lock in their losses and permanently destroy their wealth. Let's look at the ultimate proof of this. Just look at the timeline of the SPY ETF, which tracks the S&P 500. Imagine you bought a share in October 2007 at $154. Then boom, the 2008 financial crisis hits. The market completely crashes and your share drops to $73. I mean, it's terrifying, right? But remember, you only actually lose money if you hit that sell button. If you just held on, relying on cold logic instead of fear, by February 2013, you broke even again at $150. By 2018, your money doubled to $300, and today it has surged well past $500. If you don't sell in a panic, history shows us the stock market always wins.
And I've got a really shocking piece of data here to solidify why you just need to hold on. 50%. Studies have shown that if you try to constantly jump in and out of the market to avoid the bad days, and you accidentally miss just the 10 best days in the stock market over a long period, your total returns can be cut by over half. No way, right? The market doesn't just rise gradually in this perfectly straight, predictable line, it surges when you least expect it. Missing those sudden surges completely ruins your compounding momentum.
Which brings us right to our final thought. Knowing that the market's biggest gains happen in these sudden, unpredictable flashes, you have a choice to make. Will you risk your long-term wealth trying to perfectly time the market, jumping in and out, or will you simply buy, hold, and spend time in the market? Because in the end, patience isn't just a virtue, it is the ultimate investing strategy. I really hope this blueprint cleared things up for you. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.